Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Anime Theory, where we've finally gotten past a whole month of nothing but Death Note content. And today I think it's finally time to dive into a show that people have been begging for a theory for quite a while. So yes, I've been itching to cover the action-packed thrill of an anime called My Hero Academia. Ironically, I had pulled for this theory on Twitter early in my YouTube career, and it tied with Gakugarashi. Obviously, I made that theory, but now I think it's time to come back and finally fulfill the second part of that promise.
Seriously, dude, you're covering My Hero Academia? Let me guess, you're talking about how amazing the show is. That video's been made like 2,000 times by every other YouTuber. I mean, I even have like 3 videos on it.
Firstly, who the heck are you and why are you here? Secondly, this isn't a video like that. This is a theory channel.
Oh shit, discount Matt Pat's in the house. So I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that you're probably gonna try to take something innocent and make it dark.
Pretty much, that's what theory videos are nowadays anyways.
I mean, hey, you know what, if we're doing that, count me in. Always in the mood to ruin everything about a show for everyone. Anyway, I'm Manime Matt, and let's get into this.
Alrighty then, let's dig right in. So Matt, do you care to introduce the newcomers to the plot synopsis?
Absolutely. So My Hero Academia takes place in a world where a majority of the population has special abilities called quirks. These are basically superpowers, but most of them are extremely situational. I mean, one guy's ability is literally to shoot out tape. Our main protagonist is Midoriya, or Deku as the show nicknames him, who doesn't initially gain a quirk like 80% of the population. Luckily for him, he manages to obtain the quirk called One for All from his favorite hero, All Might. Thus leading us to the main story of the show, following his attempts to become a hero on par with his own mentor.
Why thank you, Manime. I need to dive in a bit deeper into these quirks, as there's some interesting aspects behind them that need to be discussed before moving on. So, as the show explains, quirks weren't originally held by a majority of the population. In fact, it started off with an almost insignificant number and gradually increased over generations, ending in the situation the society is currently in. Now, why exactly did this occur?
Well, you see, the quirk is kind of like a disease, or a deformity, that can be passed down from parent to child. Much like when one or both of your parents have blonde hair, there's a much higher chance of you having blonde hair. The way humans are formed involves both dominant and recessive traits that both have a chance at being represented in a child. You may remember studying something like this in biology.
Basically, let's say we take that previous example, hair color. Now, obviously, it doesn't work exactly like this, but I'm trying to use a more simplistic example to showcase the concept. Let's say blonde hair is the dominant trait, represented by an uppercase B, and brown hair is the recessive trait, represented by a lowercase b. Now, if the combination ends in either 2 uppercase B's or 1 uppercase and 1 lowercase, then you'll likely end up with blonde hair. Using what is called a Punnett square, we can see what combination you'll get. As you can see, there's only a 25% chance you end up with 2 lowercase b's, meaning brown hair, and the quirks work in a similar way.
So chances are quirks are a dominant trait. So basically the chances of you getting no quirk is the same as receiving 2 lowercase b's in a Punnett square, whereas receiving any other mixing of these genes guarantees a quirk. Thus, as people with quirks began mating with others with or without quirks, the children were more likely to have a quirk than not have one. And unlike with most other species, humans can still survive while either lacking a quirk or by having one that makes life more inconvenient. Sure, maybe things are a bit harder when you suddenly have a bird head, but you can still survive because even if there were some disadvantages with said lifestyle, it doesn't directly hurt your chances of survival and mating. Well, to some extent. And thus, both those lacking a quirk and those with an inconvenient quirk could survive and mate to have even more children. And as more and more of the quirkless population dies off and a larger amount of the quirked children are being born, having a quirk was a much more frequent occurrence.
So, that's interesting on its own, right? I mean, hey, now we know exactly why the population completely comprises of people with powers, and we proved it through science. Sounds like a great theory so far, right?
Oh man, this is where it gets dark, huh?
Wait, how did you know?
This is always how the theory channels act right before discussing something that'll completely ruin the series for everyone.
Predictable pattern or not, you're right. This is where the theory is about to take a dark turn. You see, there's actually one quirk that doesn't work exactly in the same way. In fact, the series goes out of its way to showcase how different this quirk is from all the others.
Does this quirk happen to be extremely painful and often results in the main character's body being turned into a limp noodle?
Right you are, Matt. You see, the quirk One for All works a bit differently. In essence, this quirk is passed down from user to user. In fact, all it takes is the consumption of some form of All Might's DNA. In our hero's case, he gets it from eating a strand of All Might's hair. And yes, that sounds just as weird in context as it does out of context.
That's nasty, but yeah, I see what you're saying. We don't see any other quirks in the anime that can be transferred in the same way. Actually, it's also the most powerful quirk that seems to exist, and has been passed down from user to user. So, Duo, why specifically did you feel the need to mention One for All?
Well, there's likely a reason why this quirk is so different than any of the others. You see, I don't think that this quirk is necessarily the same type of quirk as the others. In fact, I think we should stop calling One for All a quirk and instead call it what it likely truly is, a parasitic disease. Oh yeah, I mean it. There's a fair chance that this quirk isn't quite what you think it is. You see, a parasitic disease is one that involves parasites, obviously, either on the outside or inside of your body. Once in, they can slowly destroy your body, and One for All reeks of many of the same aspects. Firstly, I want to remind you that All for One needs to be passed down, thus meaning the person wanting the power has to allow something to enter them just to use the power. In fact, many of the instances in real life where a parasitic disease is contracted involves the parasite itself entering through the mouth.
I see your point. I mean, just look at what happened to All Might. His body has been completely destroyed at this point. Though it's been played off as a gag for the show with him constantly vomiting out blood and being generally frail, these problems are a serious issue for him. Sure, he blames it on the injuries he gained while trying to save people, but the damages seem much too insane for that to come from just injury alone. And hell, he's lost the ability to use his powers almost completely by the end of the series. And although it tries to play it off that it was caused by the fight with Nomu, the drop was still massive. Suddenly, he couldn't keep his powers up for even an hour. It seems like his health is continuing to deteriorate as the series continues, almost as if he's slowly dying. And also, may I mention, some common attributes of parasitic diseases are vomiting blood, deterioration of body, and fatigue. All things All Might seems to be experiencing. In fact, the more I look at it, the more I feel like One for All really is just a parasitic disease.
And now we get to our young pal Deku, who has just received this power. Sure, he now has access to the strongest power known in their universe, but what it's doing to his body isn't exactly helpful. Because his body can't deal with the powers of One for All initially, he's constantly injuring himself. In fact, it's almost like All for One is a disease that his body wasn't fit to deal with. Interesting parallel. Regardless, he's using this power freely without worry about what the effect will be on his body. And looking at what's happening to All Might, it's obvious to see what'll happen to Deku. I mean, think about it. All Might is pretty much falling apart at the seams. Any minute he might croak, and this is likely due to the parasitic disease infesting his body. I mean, sure, it's not an immediate effect, because clearly All Might isn't dead yet, but it's clearly destroying his entire body slowly. So in an effort to become the strongest hero and help everyone, Deku has basically screwed his life completely. Though All Might likely didn't know it, he just gave Deku a very dangerous gift. One that sure makes him powerful, but is likely to send him to an early and undeserved death. Who knew that Deku's selfless wish would cause him to contract a disease that would slowly but surely kill him, and from a mentor that was near and dear to his heart? It gives an extremely different meaning to don't meet your heroes, because there's a chance that they might kill you.
Wow, well, that was dark, Duo.
Hey, it's what I do.
Oh yeah, I was wondering if you still want to talk about My Hero Academia. While everyone else seems to be talking about the same subjects over and over again, I have some new stuff I want to talk about. Care to join me?
As long as I get to talk about the music.
Fine, Duo, you can talk about the music. If you guys like My Hero Academia or anime in general, you should really click the link and jump over to my channel. I do both educational and comedy videos, all done in the same style that this video was edited in, just not in the theory genre.
You better not, or I'll kill you in your sleep if you do.
And if you happen to like my content, don't be afraid to subscribe to both me and Duo. Subscribe to Duo.